90% of hunting brands are manufacturing their gear in the same overseas factories and charging you $400 for it. That is not an opinion. That is what hunters who have spent years in the industry are now saying publicly. And once you understand exactly how this system works, you will never look at a hunting gear logo the same way again. Here is what nobody in the hunting industry wants you to know. In the early days of technical hunting clothing, the brands that built the industry were run by hunters. They were obsessed with fabric performance, weight, and what actually works when your life or your hunt depends on it. They were scrappy, focused, and they knew their customer because they were their customer. Then, private equity arrived. Today, virtually every major technical hunting apparel brand has been sold to a private equity firm or a large corporation. The names on the labels stayed the same. The people making the decisions changed entirely. And the hunters on Rokslide, some of the most experienced backcountry hunters in the country, noticed almost immediately. One forum member who has spent years building a technical hunting gear company from the inside wrote this in 2025 on Rokslide. In the early days, the big names in technical hunting apparel were built by hunters for hunters. They were focused, scrappy, and obsessed with the details. Today, things feel different. All of the big technical hunting apparel brands have grown and sold to private equity or large corporations. That is not coming from a disgruntled customer. That is coming from someone inside the industry watching it happen in real time. But here is where it gets worse. Most hunters assume that when a brand charges $400 for a jacket, they are paying for the quality of the manufacturing. The material, the craftsmanship, the research that went into it. Here is what they are actually paying for. The majority of hunting apparel, including gear from brands you trust, is manufactured overseas, primarily in Vietnam, Cambodia, and China. The labor cost in those factories is significantly lower than in the United States. The markup that gets applied between the factory door and the retail shelf is extraordinary. One hunter on Rokslide put it directly. He does not want to spend $300 on pants made in China when he knows those pants cost $3 to make. He would pay $300 for American-made clothing with real quality and real customer support. But that is not what most of the market is offering. Another hunter on the same forum, describing gear from one of the most respected names in hunting apparel, wrote that it seems we get China-made quality at American-made prices. Before we go further, if you want to know which specific brands are worth your money and which ones to stop buying entirely, check out our other videos right here. We have already exposed the worst offenders across boots, gear, and knives. Thousands of hunters have saved real money watching them. Now, here's the part that will genuinely change how you shop. The private equity playbook for hunting brands is not complicated. A private equity firm acquires a brand that hunters love. The brand has a strong reputation, a loyal customer base, and a name that took years to build. The firm then applies pressure to increase margins. Manufacturing costs get reduced. Quality control standards get softened. The product that comes out the other end looks the same on the shelf. It has the same logo. It costs the same or more. But it is not the same product. Hunt Talks forum captured this perfectly. A member asked what private equity means. Another member answered, "It is commonplace for a good business to flourish, to be bought by private equity investors, and then run into the ground based on a sole focus on margins and profits." First Light was acquired by MeatEater, the hunting media company founded by Steven Rinella in June 2019. MeatEater is not a traditional private equity firm, but the acquisition brought venture capital backing and corporate growth pressure. The quality decline that followed was documented on Rokslide by hunters who had owned the brand's gear for years. One described the new products as looking and feeling like Walmart hunting pants, with First Light camo printed on them. Mystery Ranch was acquired by Yeti in January 2024 for $36 million. By November 2024, reports emerged that Yeti planned to sunset the Mystery Ranch brand entirely. Under Armour expanded aggressively into hunting. The product failed in the field, and by late 2025, their hunting jackets were selling for $40 on permanent clearance. Bass Pro acquired Cabela's in 2017 for $5.5 billion. The quality of Cabela's own brand gear collapsed within years of the merger. The pattern is always the same. A brand gets acquired, costs get cut, quality declines. Hunters pay the same price for a worse product, and the brand coasts on a reputation it earned years before the acquisition until enough hunters figure out what happened. So how do you avoid it? The answer is simpler than the industry wants you to think. Look for brands that are still owned by hunters. Look for brands that are direct to consumer. They have no retail markup to inflate the price between the factory and your hands. Look for brands that have been tested and recommended by actual backcountry hunters on forums like Rokslide and Hunt Talk, not by sponsored influencers who are paid to say the product is good, regardless of whether it is. Brands like Exo Mountain Gear, Stone Glacier, Initial Ascent, Forloh, and Seek Outside have not been acquired by private equity. They're still run by people who hunt. Their reputations on the forums are built on real field performance, not marketing budgets. The hunting gear industry wants you to believe that the name on the label is what you are paying for. The hunters who actually spend weeks in the backcountry have figured out that the name on the label is often the last thing that changed after everything that mattered already got cut. Stop buying the logo. Start buying the reputation, earned in the field, tested by hunters who had real stakes riding on their gear. Subscribe for more honest breakdowns of the hunting gear industry. Drop a comment below. Which brand has let you down the most after a quality decline? I want to hear your experience. Thanks for watching. But there is a second layer to this problem that most hunters never think about. It is not just about private equity. It is about how hunting gear is actually made and who is actually making it. Most hunters assume that when they buy a jacket from brand A and a jacket from brand B, those two jackets are made by two completely different manufacturers with completely different standards and processes. In reality, many hunting apparel brands source their products from the same small group of overseas factories. The OEM model, which stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer, means that the same factory that makes gear for a premium brand may also be making nearly identical products for a budget brand. The primary difference is the label sewn into the collar and the price printed on the tag. This is not speculation. It is the documented business model of the global apparel industry. A manufacturer in Vietnam or Cambodia accepts contracts from multiple brands, produces goods to whatever specification those brands request, and ships the finished product to warehouses around the world. If brand A requests premium materials and rigorous quality control, they get a premium product. If brand B requests the same silhouette and pattern but cheaper materials and faster production, they get that instead. Both jackets go into retail stores. Both carry brand names hunters recognize. The only way to tell the difference is to wear them in the field under real conditions. This is why hunters on Rokslide who have been running gear for 20 years can tell you within a single season that a brand's quality has declined. They are not guessing. They're comparing what they bought 5 years ago to what they bought last year from the same brand. When the factory changes, when the material spec changes, when the quality control standards get relaxed to cut costs, experienced hunters feel it immediately. The problem is that new hunters and hunters who are not connected to communities like Rokslide and Hunt Talk have no way of knowing this. They see the same logo, the same price, the same marketing language about innovation and performance and field-tested design, and they pay the same $400 for a product that is not the same product that built the brand's reputation. One hunter on Rokslide captured the entire problem in a single sentence. Not just rebranding some Alibaba or cheap garbage that a name gets slapped on and pushed by 20 plus influencers as game changers in revolutionary technology. That is what 90% of hunting brands are doing right now. The good news is that the information exists to protect yourself. The communities where honest hunters share honest experiences, Rokslide, Hunt Talk, Archery Talk, are free to join and filled with decades of documented gear experience. The brands that have earned consistent long-term praise in those communities are the ones worth your money. The brands that show up on clearance racks 2 seasons after a private equity acquisition are the ones that used to be worth your money. The factory secret is not complicated. The brands that are selling you garbage know exactly what they are doing. They are betting that you do not know what you are paying for, and that by the time you figure it out, you will have already bought the next product with the same logo on it. Now you know.